hello everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on this discussion about hashtag Short It Out, which we're going to have today with award-winning filmmaker Rachel Tillotson. As Rachel said, we know each other very well, actually. We've worked together, and we actually, I think I said this to her when we were talking about this event this evening. I think she's the last person I went out for a drink with before lockdown.
It was, yes.
Quite strange, actually. So we should have drunk much more if we'd have known.
We were driving, so yeah.
Good point. Yeah. So hello, welcome. My name's Freya Billington. I'm a filmmaker and a lecturer, and we are, as I said, speaking to the award-winning filmmaker Rachel Tillotson. In the room tonight, as well as all of you, we also have Alex Taylor, who is the BFI Talent Executive for the Southwest, and she's going to help facilitate the Q&A chat, which is where you're going to be asking questions. So it's different to often sessions you might have done on other things. All the questions go through Q&A, please. So it's really exciting to have you this evening, Rachel. Hello.
Hello.
And the basis of what we're talking about, we're going to discuss your work, but this is with a view to the campaign, the Short It Out online campaign, which has been set up by the BFI Network, the Encounters Film Festival and the Watershed, with the event partners BAFTA and Channel 4, with obviously links to depict, which we'll talk about with regard to you, and as a response to the situation we're all in currently. So let's kick it off before we start talking about work and your process, how are you coping with everything that's going on at the moment? Are you finding it creative?
I'm okay. I'm pretty much the same as a lot of people I spoke to, which is things have slowed down a bit. Not my own work really that much, but just the day's pace, should we say? And that's weird and quite nice. I'm spending more time alone. That's a different thing. But so I am spending more time alone. So yes, it's been it's difficult to be separated, I think, from people, and there's worries, about people that I know that are vulnerable. Yeah. There's so much you could do about that, I guess. Yeah. But it's allowing some time, I guess, to think about things to rise to the surface, like projects that I really want to do. Yeah, it's a little bit sort of a luxury in that way.
To have some time.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think a lot of people are talking about time that they can't normally find and don't normally have, and I think some people are finding it easier than others to be creative during that time. So to talk a little bit about your process, obviously we're going to look at some clips, but before we do, can you talk a bit about how you work? Obviously we're going to look at films from across your career, including a clip from something very recent. How do you work? What's your as a writer director? How do you start a project?
Well, quite a few years ago, I wouldn't know the answer for this. I would, but I think that I kind of probably do now, and how it comes across. But I would say that I probably initiate from opinion. If that makes any sense. So I might have an opinion on something, but it's bubbling away, and then I find, and I don't go chasing that opinion or anything, trying to look for the content for it or anything like that. Yeah. But this is more recently, so I'll talk about how it used to be, I guess. And then I might see a program, or I might see some artwork, usually photography, something like that, and the sort of the penny will drop, or it might be even a story online, and I go, oh, okay, that resonates with my opinion about something, or what I feel about some kind of state that we're in. I can demonstrate that through an idea I've got, I suppose. And then the two come together in some senses, and I write out an idea and I send it to everyone who's got a heartbeat, and as a kind of test. And then some of them get back to me and say their opinions. Yeah. And when they don't get back to me, I go, okay, well, maybe that didn't work.
Right.
But I do ask people's opinions quite early on to see if it resonates with them, and that seems to be important to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess that's partly, I guess, trying the idea out.
Yeah.
But does it also sometimes open the idea up a bit more? Do you get the people, because I think people find it quite hard to share ideas until they feel that they've absolutely nailed what it is. But do you feel like that getting opinion on an idea actually often helps you kind of unlock where you might be going with it?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it depends. I mean, I say it depends on the person, but I obviously, they may be in the industry and have a very challenging viewpoint. They may say back to me, "Oh, that's been done," which is really important for me to find out. You know, "Oh, no, that's been done." Or they might say, "There's something similar to that out there," and I go looking. But actually, equally as valid as people not in the industry or anything may say, that's almost, I say, more important. But if they've got a gut reaction and they go, "Wow, I'd love to see that," that's a real. I love that. That's a real winner.
Yeah. And so how often, I mean, that's crazy to ask question really, but do you have a lot of projects going on at the same time? Do some ideas kind of come together quicker than others? Yeah. Is there a regular process, or does it really just depend on the idea and circumstance and all that feedback?
So I think it's, on average, I might have about 4 projects on the go, because in terms of working on it, but some of them are, you know, on the back burner, and something I do every day, and they come and go according to if I've sent it away to read for somebody to read, or, you know, something like that. So yeah, I think, what was the question again?
No, it was just about whether you find it advantageous to have several things on the go at once.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
How different their development process is.
Yeah, that's true. So yes, it is advantageous. The reason why is I have to step away from it to figure out how I feel about it. It's not, and when I come back to it, I kind of go, then I have much more of an instinct of whether it's working. So that might be familiar to some people.
Yeah.
There was a period of time, probably for a decade, that I realized I was doing a lot of projects, but what I was finding was that I actually was wanting people's approval of them much more than I should have, right. You know. So I was working until they were perfect before I'd send them out, and for various people in the industry or something, and then I produced a lot of work then. Yeah. But now I think I know much more. I'll go back to that opinion thing, what I want to say. And back then I was sort of writing things for effect, I suppose. So I think the whole journey's been quite an interesting one to see how I've become a little bit clearer about what I'm interested in.
Well, that's a great segue into the first clip. And I thought we'd start with As I Was Falling, because of the very specific relationship it has with the Short It Out competition that we're kind of promoting this evening. Can you talk a little bit about how As I Was Falling came out, and why you made it, and then we'll watch it, and then I can ask you some more questions about it.
As it was a project that was part of my master's degree at the Royal College of Art. We had to make a short film, very short film, you know, and we could otherwise make an advert, or we could make a short film. And I didn't want to make an advert. I would have if I could think of a good one, but I couldn't really think of a good one. So it was more to do with the discovery of a number of different things. And my tutor at the time at uni was a guy called Al Rees, who was a great influence on me, and knew a lot about experimental film, you know, and he showed me a film called La Jetée by Chris Marker, but also at the same time there was a front cover of a magazine in London called Rushes. I don't know if you know Rushes, but there was a picture of a man falling in the front of it, which I've actually kept somewhere. I haven't brought it out, but I've kept it, and it was black and white, and it had the same energy as La Jetée in my mind, and I pinned it on my desk at college, and it sort of spoke to me about this contrast between the violence of the fall and the peacefulness of the man. But I had also been in London by that time about 4 years, and I was very impressed. I was very it was the biggest city I'd ever lived in up to that point, you know, and I was feeling the kind of oppressiveness of people living very close to one another.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something about that. And so, but I have to say, I didn't know what I was going to make until I finished it.
Got you. At that note, that seems like this would be a good time to have a look at that. Can we play As I Was Falling, please? I just think I think it's a stunning piece. You know I do, and I'd seen it long before I met you, and was really struck by it. Can you talk a little bit about? You said you kind of worked out what it was about as you made it. What was the production process like of putting this together?
It was great, actually, and I kind of I had a producer on it, but she was very busy at the time, and so I don't remember really liaising a lot with her. But I do remember deciding how we were going to shoot, and I organised that shoot, and there was actually 2 shoots, one in the studio for a build downstairs at the RCA, and one shoot that was, it was the man falling, and I had done some bit of research beforehand. At college we had the stuntman come in, and I asked him how much it would cost to throw somebody off the side of a building, and how would you shoot it, and he asked me how I needed to shoot it, and I said, well, I need this, and he said to me, that's going to cost X amount, which of course I didn't have, and he said, what sort of footage do you need? And well, I thought to myself, actually, I don't think he asked me that, and I thought, okay, it looks like I need to throw this man off the building several times. That's quite a nice idea. And so I decided to contact the bungee jump on the Thames River. I don't think it's been there for a while, but at the time it was kind of near Waterloo Bridge or London Bridge or something. And one of the sort of instructors of the bungee jump agreed to put a suit on. And 4 of us, I was one of the camera people, shot him falling. I think he did 3 jumps, that's what I remember. Yeah. And then I decided, and we shot him on high 8 camera. Do you remember that?
Oh, amazing.
High 8 cameras. and then I looked at the footage during that time, and I thought, no, I think I just need him to dangle in the right positions. So we got some of that footage as well. Yeah. So then I had to go through those. I had to find stills, frames, and that took a while. Yeah. And I chose it takes me back. I chose the frames that I wanted in sequences, and they were cut first into a sequence. Yeah. Then they were exported out into Photoshop. Yeah. And I worked with 2 people, brilliant talents, Justinian Buckley and
I know Justinian, yeah,
great, and Paul Freeth, who is now in America, but he's a phenomenal talent. And they worked at the same time, so I was working with Justinian, and I went outside and just filmed the outside of the Royal Albert Hall on a high air camera as well, and came back with that footage, and it got composited underneath, and then that got photoshopped, and then I got painted. Put back into the Avid again, and then we recut those sequences and timed them. I timed them.
Yeah.
Whilst doing the shoot downstairs in the studio of the colour. That was 16mm camera. And that was just a flag. I just flagged the window when someone fell past. So.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the things that raises, which I think is directly relevant to this, the competition, is that when you can't do something, when something isn't feasible due to money or any other restraint, you just have to figure out another way to do it. And that do you not feel that restriction, well, certainly at the moment, we're all quite restricted in many ways, can often be a great force behind creativity?
Absolutely. I didn't, at the time, I didn't feel restricted. I'm funny enough, when a stuntman says you can't do that unless you've got X amount of money, I didn't feel restricted at that point. I thought, well, I just have to do it a different way.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have thought up ideas unless there was influences. So I was very much influenced by Legette, and very much influenced by a filmmaker you might know called Jamie Thraves.
Yes, yes. He did the black and white London one. Yeah.
So he made a film called Hackney Downs, which I really liked his approach in it. He was jumping down the line, and I decided to experiment with that. And when I filmed the interior as I was falling, I was jumping down the line, but moving the camera like 4 inches to the left, and then 5 inches to the left. I'm literally physically moving the camera, the 16mm camera in. So I wasn't trying stuff. So my point is that it helps to have a key influence to go, I want to have a go at that, or try that. Yeah, I didn't,
No, you did. I think you explained that really well. And I think the one thing that people can do at the moment is access a huge amount of films, not just features, but short form work online to be inspired by. We've got a couple of questions that I'm going to just dip in before we go to the next clip. Stasha says, do you have any particular themes / opinions that you're really passionate about? Things that you feel should be out there, things that you really want to see that you don't think there are enough of? It's a really good question.
Oh yeah. I don't. Well, there's two questions. I think it's two questions there. One is what am I opinionated about, and one is what's not enough out there. One of them, which appears in something I'm working on at the moment, is our relationship to technology. It fascinates me, and I think probably it's got something to do with where I grew up. But I don't know, because I grew up in Cambridge, but and I was very much around a lot of inventions at the time. So I think that technology, our relationship to how we give over our power to it, and don't mind or mind and try and control that, how we control and how it controls us is really something is interesting, but not just that, how it changes our relationship to each other and to what we are ready to accept as reality. So therefore that's kind of moved me on to the genre of sci-fi up to a point, although I don't necessarily watch sci-fi that is fantasy sci-fi so much, how much as I like Star Wars and spaceships and stuff. It's much more science fiction in the everyday world. And the other thing is probably how women are represented on the screen. That's a completely different area, and really how women treat each other and stuff like that. It's a big topic.
Yeah, well, it's a huge topic, I think. But that's really I think that's really good, isn't it? There are certain sort of motivations and that I definitely, knowing your work, I can definitely see that link a lot of those ideas. I'm going to ask, we've got a question from Galaxy J6, which I'm assuming isn't their name, but it's fabulous if it is. And that's going to relate directly to the next clip we're going to show, which is a film you made before the one we've just seen, which is called The White Room. And he wanted to talk about how you get actors together when you're on a tight budget, which relates to a lot of your work. Tell us a little bit about The White Room. We'll watch the clip and then we'll address that question a bit about working with actors.
The White Room was made many years ago. Within a year of arriving in London, within months actually, I joined a short film course, a weekend course in Camden. And from that, I got a group of people together to make a short film. And I wanted to apply to the Royal College of Art. It was just sort of like, very focused, a bit overworked at the time. I think I worked too hard at that time. But I did get together this idea but you have to understand that I'd just done a BA in drama, in devising acting, you know, been acting for 2 years. So I was kind of taking theatrical ideas and filming them. And so I felt quite confident that I could do another one of those, a stage play type thing. So the White Room was a kind of post-drama school 20-minute, you know, I think it's 15 minutes in the end. That was probably, you know, to be honest, it's got absurdism in it, and, without a doubt. And it was influenced by Peter Brook, The Empty Space, ideally, you know, but that's not really conceptually in it, but he was a big influence on me during my degree. But also sort of Ionesco, bit of absurdism and stuff like that. So that idea was made with actors that I was at Bretton Hall with.
Right.
And yeah, is that enough?
Yeah, that's great. No, I think we should watch it, but we'll go back to talking about how you get actors on board.
Sorry, yeah. To explain this concept, so it's about a man in a white room and everything, he's in a straitjacket, and he has to, there's no doors and no windows in the room, and he finds a pen, and when he draws on the wall, everything he draws materializes in the room. So the concept is he tries to draw himself out of the room.
And on that note, can we go to a clip of The White Room?
Oh, madness.
Great. That's great to see that, and so yeah, so obviously what I really like is how different the two films are, and I think I talk about that a lot when we look at some of your other work. But yeah, so the actors you knew, and how have you found getting on? So I assume in that process it was quite easy to persuade him to be. I recognise his face, I think, but
Coleman, yeah.
So it was, I assume, reasonably easy to get him on board.
Yeah.
How easy or difficult is that as you've gone on throughout your career, getting actors involved, especially when you've got minimal budget?
I don't think I've had too many difficulties. I think the main difficulties is accessing actors if you don't have a budget. That's the one thing I can think of. If you don't have a budget, it's going to be hard pressed to get actors to work with you. Obviously, like The White Room, I can't remember. I don't think I have to ask Dominic, but at the time we all did it, because it was our first film. I think it was Dominic's first, or one of the first things we did. It's the important thing is to pay them, and not, that's my view, not every filmmaker, in terms of your first shorts, they are as important as anybody else, that's, I'm quite passionate about that, but there has been situations where I might have said to somebody, there's a reduced fee. There's sometimes you can't access an actor necessarily because they're too busy or something like that. I think what I have had in the past is I had a fantastic experience of working with a couple of casting directors, and that's a total joy, absolute joy. But I've not always done that, because I've not always had a fee to do that.
Yeah.
So my advice is do raise finance for them, please, and treat them well, because they have a really difficult job. It's often underestimated just how much they have to put into things, you know.
I think it's important to say you're not talking about top whack payment. You're talking about
No.
But just so people don't think, well, hang on, what does that mean in terms of getting a budget together? You know, you can find online what the base rate of paying people is. And I think just to make clear to people, you know, we're not talking about a huge amount of money. It's about getting some money together and paying your actors. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think, you know, you could talk to her agent, or if you, I mean, to try access, you know, through some way to get the script into their hands in some way is really important, and try to talk to them about if they're happy to do it for whatever you've got, and they can just say no if they don't feel happy with that, or they can say yes if they like the script. But the script is going to be really important to the actor.
Yeah.
Or the method of working is also important.
They have to get something out of it. It has to feel like it's going to be a positive experience for them. So The White Room, you finished The White Room. Was that the film you used primarily for your Royal College application? And so how long? We just watched a clip. How long is the film?
About 15 minutes. Yeah.
So then the next piece you made obviously was much shorter than that. Can you talk a little bit about short narrative? Because we're obviously the competition shorted out is about a maximum of 90 seconds. Any length up to that. What do you think the real skill is with making really short content?
Yeah. Well, I tend to say that your relationship to style and to style and content is really important. So if you're going to take on something that's got a lot of content, which means that it's about lots of stuff, about, you know, lots of things happen, then your style should really be very simple.
Yeah.
But if you've got a really simple concept, like a man falling down the side of a building is one concept, your style can get very, very complicated.
Right.
Another way of explaining that is rather than cover like 3 days in 90 seconds or, you know, whatever, you could cover less than 3 seconds worth of story time and look at it under a microscope, you know? So you don't have to make a film that's in real time in terms of the narrative. You could say, I'm going to just look at a moment when X passes Y on the street and how he feels about her. And that could actually last 4 seconds, but you're repeating it or seeing it. So really think about the time it takes to tell a story. You don't have to do lots. So that's what I would call the relationship between concept and content and style. So, and really, what is it you're interested in? Are you interested in what you want to say, or are you interested in how you want to say it? Or is it both equally? And so those are the things that I think are probably quite important. Don't try and do too much.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of story.
Yeah, but absolutely, as you said, try and make it something that's got your voice attached. That's clearly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely try and make it unique.
I've got an interesting question here from Adrian Barber, who says, many people say the short form is just a stepping stone to features. You're one of a handful of filmmakers that sold short films both nationally and internationally. Do you have any advice for filmmakers who are self-distributing or going to markets on their own? And do you also feel the climate for short films is changing with the new platforms and people's viewing habits?
Well, this is one that you could answer with me, Freya, because you probably, you know, we probably don't both. I've made short films on 35mm, you know, and red camera and 5/8 and all kinds of different approaches, really. And I've gone to festivals around the world, you know, all that sort of stuff. And but I definitely have seen the festival market change, without a doubt. And I think that you can create yourself on a platform nowadays in a way that you can't in the past.
Yeah.
So, but I do still think that doesn't sometimes compete to a festival itself, an actual festival. Like one of my best experiences was a place in Clermont-Ferrand. Yeah. If you've been there, but I would definitely recommend. You've not been to the festival?
No. Taunt me a bit more. No, I know it looks wonderful.
Clermont-Ferrand it blew me away completely. I went a couple of times, and it's a festival in France that they just take over the cinema. It feels like they take over a bunch of cinemas in the city, and those cinemas are thousands of seats, and it floods with people completely. The passion for film there is, I hadn't seen it, you know, before or since, you know, in my festival experience. I'm sure I could, you know, at some point, but that, and there was a marketplace that was literally an aircraft hangar that you could go, and everyone had a strategy. You know, there were people with cards marketing themselves and connections being made and people getting agents and, you know, people talking about projects together. It was really exciting and a great sort of social atmosphere. And so that is difficult to find in the same energy online. But I do think that building an audience nowadays on a different way is something that's really important. I'm not so versed in those using platforms. It might be I feel a bit shy about it. I know that sounds a bit mad, but I don't really push myself out there as much as I think I should.
I think one. Oh, sorry, go for it.
It's fine. I tried to focus on. Is that the answer, do you think, or do you think there's more to it?
I think that's a really good answer, actually. And I think all I was going to add to that was I think the attitude to short film in the UK, not by short filmmakers, but it's quite different in other parts of Europe. There are cultures which really celebrate, or countries which really celebrate short film as an art form in itself. And I think those, as a result, going to festivals like that, there's quite a different audience and quite a different kind of feel. And I think there will always be something amazing about having your film on the big screen with a large audience watching it live. Having said that, there are very exciting watching short films online and being able to discuss them with people.
Yeah, that's great, you know, and well, an obvious thing is that we can make shorts, we can make work now. However many years ago it was, we didn't really have that equipment to make it so readily. I personally think that can change the landscape, but really at the end of the day, a film is going to travel, I think, if it connects with what it's saying and how it's made. And I remember some of my favourite shorts were back in the 90s, were just mind-blowing and had a real cinematic feel to them.
And I think, you know, just to relate again to the short it out, it's important to realise that you can make your film on anything. You really can make it. This is not about it being on the latest, greatest camera. You can use your phones, you can use iPads, you can use your computer, whatever it is you want to use. And it's the way your film's going to communicate is through the story. I mean, I remember seeing a fantastic short that did really well. I think it won at Sundance years ago, and it was Super 8, and it was just a bloke talking on this street corner he was an extra. It was wonderful, and it really was just Super 8 and two characters chatting on a corner. Yeah. So I think, again, just to say that it's the film, it's the story, it's the idea, it's the aesthetic, rather than what kit you have to make it with. Which
it's the idea, and there's ones that I just try and keep and watch and show people again and again and say, you know, this is so good, and it has its own unique opinion about what it is, and it's obviously a contained idea rather than an extract from a feature. I've never made a short that in connection to a feature in terms of thinking about making a feature of it, although I'm moving to, apart from last year I made a short in connection to a longer project that I think we're going to see
in a moment. Before we go to that, don't worry, I'm aware of all the other questions, guys. I'm just going to relate them as we go along. We're going to have a look at I'll Tell You. Can you talk to us a little bit about that film?
Yeah, I wrote that when I was living in London. So I moved to Bristol in 2009, or the end of 2009. So I'd pretty much written that, you know, and then I pitched it when I wrote in my first year of moving here. And then I had to go back to script again and start, because when they develop it off. So that was a sort of passion project from London, and what do I want to say about it? So it's a bit like Marmite to me. There's lots of things that I love about the aesthetics of the film work and, you know, the picture and stuff like that. I definitely wanted to say something about a passive aggressive teenager.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt, a girl who didn't feel she was understood by a mother, and I definitely wanted to, you know, the gap between that age group and adults. And I wanted to say, I really do love, and it's quite difficult explore parallel timelines
Yeah.
that meet and change and influence. So, and in fact, that sort of happens in my graduation film in some senses, where you've got past and present cutting. And what I've always been interested in, I don't think I've really managed to pull it off properly, is that the audience work out what the story is in between the two timelines.
Yeah.
Or the timelines meet at a point of revelation, and these are the things. But that shoot was quite difficult because I think we had a lot of scenes to shoot, and I was told by the producer, nobody knew what you were doing, Rachel, all the way through the shoot. We just shooting these things until they saw the edit, and then they went, "Oh, that's what she wants to do." But no, that's just an exaggeration. But the script was complemented by a couple of big people. I was a mentee to David Yates, Harry Potter, and he rang me up from the set and said, "This is a beautiful script."
Wow.
Oh my God, that's a day I'm going to remember forever. And
those of you who don't know, David Yates is a little bit famous for directing large amounts of Harry Potter, as well as other things.
Yes, sorry. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the other thing about it is it's got voiceover, and sometimes that I think that's fine, that works, and sometimes I don't. So I've got so I think I've chosen the clip without voiceover.
Yeah, but that's quite interesting in itself, that the fact that one's relationship changes with your work as you make it, when you've made it, and then down the line watching it again. Can we have a quick look at a clip from I'll Tell You, please? Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful piece. I don't know. Yeah, can you say a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, it's about a girl who's reflecting on a crash. Two people crashed one evening, two of her friends, who were rebellious teenagers who were in love, and she believes that only they knew what love was because they had pure love, you know, in her view. And her mother, who doesn't love her, of course, in her view, you know, not in the way they loved each other, are much more, you know, she knows the wisdom beyond her years.
Yeah.
And so I hope that I brought about the tension that was there, but it's quite heartfelt that the girl is obviously mourning, but she's on a journey to visit their baby who was born just after the crash, you know, in hospital with the mother was in a coma, and she's going to tell the baby how much her parents loved, you know, each other. So that's the sort of bit that, so people, the idea is that people work out what the title means right in the last shot, and it was I do like voiceover. So the only thing I would say is I do like voiceover, and I'm writing something with voiceover at the moment, but I do think it can work. It can work, but it's quite a risk. It's one of the, you know.
Yeah, it can be kind of alienating. I've got a question from Jessie. So obviously your work, and we're going to move towards what you're working on at the moment, but was it very difficult to change working between short film and TV? And is the production process really different?
Yes, for me. I don't know about other people. I mean, the TV is a different world. It's not, obviously there's parallels, but in the TV world, there's so many different other things you have to, you know, you're not always going to be the auteur, and it's not going to be about your story. You're working on you're part of a big team. There's a whole an audience, there's ratings, there's everything to think about that is beyond what you might need to think about in a short film. So and you slot into a plan, and it's very, in my mind, it's very producer led, and there's vast amounts of money, and you have to hit deadlines, and you have to do a certain amount of pages a day, and you have to you have to work fast. My experience in telly was that it was wonderful meeting certain talent and working with the talent. I love that. Yeah. So, but with shorts, you can decide. You can't always decide, oh, I'll reshoot that tomorrow or anything. But you can be much more experimental. If you could say people aren't necessarily doing it to make money with shorts, or to keep a business going, as TV is. It's much more self-expression. So that's the main difference.
Yeah, which is a really key thing, and I guess that the ideal would be to sort of, I don't know, mix between the two, or. Yeah,
I think the audience, TV audience, wants risk, but not too much. Yeah. That's my guess. Yeah. They want something familiar, but they also don't. Yeah. And I think there's a fine line between allowing them to, wanting to give them new content, but also not making them turn off and make a cup of tea and forget about. They don't lose them too much.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to go to the next clip, just because I think we're not running out of time, but there's quite a few things I think to ask you after this. Can you tell us a little bit about Matt that we're going to watch a clip of?
So this is more recent, and this is a proof of concept for a TV series that I made last year.
So explain that. What do you mean by a proof of concept? I mean,
well, I call it a proof of concept. It's a short film, valid, but it's much more TV in its style. I was given an opportunity. I was asked to direct to write and direct a short film for the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama for their actors and MA course there, and that was so I said to the lady, well, I've got some ideas that I'd like to make into longer pieces. And I pitched her a couple of ideas, and she chose Matt, which, and she said, oh, that sounds interesting, because one of the jobs for this project for her actors is to have everybody on screen equal time for their show reels. So that's quite a challenge. And at the time I was writing BFI feature treatment, and I knew I had to, several projects on at the same time. So I needed to, and I asked a TV writer I knew from Wales to take on the idea and co-write with me. So I took her the idea. She knew about it actually, because I've been developing Matt as an idea for a couple of years really. And I was talking to a production company. I have now got a relationship with them, production company in Cardiff, who've optioned Matt. So Matt takes place it was very much inspired by Westworld, particularly the first season.
Yeah, fab first season, yeah.
And so it's really, I don't know, should I just tell you that? It's about a type of technology that allows you to meet people loved ones who have passed on. So it takes place in a company called Pontum Technologies, which means bridge in Latin, and it's bridging life, life with death. And you can pay to go into a client space, a room where you will stand in front of a glass panel, which looks like it's just a glass panel, but it's not. It's intelligent. It's intelligent technology. It's very clever. And there's, on the other side of that, there was actually somebody called a mapper, which is what the TV series is about the mappers that work at Pontum. And Pontum, the Pontum mappers have to be they step into the shoes of deceased loved ones. The technology around them, from the booth and through their smart glass and everything, translates their image into the loved one of the client. And they basically have an encounter. It's an opportunity to say goodbye. It's an opportunity to kind of tell secrets to one another and do all kinds of things like that. But it's a concept I thought of whilst I was watching Westworld. I know people say it's quite like Black Mirror, but I think that my argument would be that it's actually looking at our relationship to what the technology is and so it's a little bit more than just the concept of the technology.
And rather neatly, that kind of takes us back to what you were saying right from the start, is that this is one of the real areas of interest for you, is our relationship with that kind of technology. Could we have a look at a clip from Mapped?
Why couldn't you tell me?
I'm a fuck up.
I did everything I could.
I needed to grow up.
You did what you always do.
Yeah, exit stage left. Easier than facing shit.
I thought you stopped for good. You promised.
I was addicted. It made me a natural born liar.
Everyone gave me so many chances. I know. And I blew it. And I'm sorry.
Good.
So when you say, so that was something you made last year, you got the budget because it was for the project for actors to work, is that right?
Yeah, we did some crowdfunding as well.
Right, got you. And as you said, it was a short film that stands up on its own right, but it was also designed for a TV concept.
Yeah.
And can you talk about what options means for anybody who's not clear about?
Yeah, because it is, yeah. So I just wanted to make, firstly, I wanted to make a short film to demonstrate the kind of concept. And I think I've just chosen a clip to show, obviously, what we're doing there in terms of story as we're traveling through the wall, you know, to see that there's a three persons, the triangle scenario between mapper and client and the deceased person. So I wanted to see if I could put the idea up on the screen to show how, to sort of show that how it could work and explore the narrative. So an option is a contract or an agreement between a writer, I suppose, filmmaker, writer, and a production company. As this is how I understand it, there might be other options, types of things. It's an agreement that that company or that producer will take on that idea for a set amount of time, like own it, I suppose, in order to raise finance for it, so it can go into development or production.
So it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. And when you said it was more TV, you know, I remember you said, because I came to the screening, obviously, and you talked about the aesthetic. Do you mean, obviously, aesthetically, it's more TV than the other work that we've seen of yours, but also in terms of the storytelling, do you think?
I think so. Before Matt's got optioned, I took it to the Torino Film Lab in Italy and sort of pitched it. And this was before I made the short, and I just to kind of do my testing out thing. And I was very pleased with their response. In particular, what I was pleased about was that they said it was, that I came back with a kind of thumbs up that it would really suit ongoing running drama, you know?
Yeah.
A long form, kind of long, you know, it goes over quite a few seasons. That's what I like. And that's because so many storylines can spin out from the different, you know, clients and visitors, and in particular the mappers. So I actually want to sort of sit it more in the quantum company, and the clients are visiting. You can think about ER. That's what we want it to be. Yeah, you know, with the doctors and then there all the time, and the nurses. Also another influence recently has been Succession,
which I still haven't seen.
So good. But you know, the tensions between the family and the company, that is actually.
Yeah. Couple of questions come in. Freddie, hello Freddie, says, entering a new decade, what topics do you think will be most prominent in shorts and feature films?
Exciting. What topics? Well, the ones that I like is things like the singularity. You know what I mean by that? Like how it's like how technology or artificial intelligence and, you know, all of those things that we're building, what happens when it overtakes us? So you think it's Terminator. What will happen if that's what different topics. I think fundamentally the climate we're in at the moment is changing us. I think that's going to be a while before we can figure out how we're benefiting and who is suffering. We know who's suffering, but there's going to be, we have to keep our eye on the ball. And how we can look after the environment. So that will be another.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and it won't be necessarily as overtly obvious as you know, just reflection on this period of time, but as you say, I think long-lasting impact, which we can't even hazard a guess at the moment. Another question coming from Owain, I hope I said that right. What's your distribution strategy for festivals, and how do you make the most of opportunities once you've got a short in a festival? How do you really kind of push that and get as much out of it as you can do?
Well, I don't know if it's a producer asking the question or somebody, but you absolutely have to work very tightly with the producer if you're a director. So I'm not a producer, and I would rely on a very strong relationship with a producer to get that strategy together before, not or during the edit, and have some not just two people working on it. I mean, that might sound a bit ambitious to say you need quite a few people, but I do think it's a team effort. Yeah. And you may decide, right, let's, you know, in post-production, when you're editing, doing the sound, to have meetings on these things. There's a tendency after you shoot that a lot of people go, oh, that's it, we've done it now. It's all right, just to get together, and then it will just become itself and it will fly. And that's not recommended. I think that you definitely need to, these days, less so in the past, but you need to raise a budget for your festivals. You need to research the festivals. You decide what order you want to send it to what festival. Always put it online with a password, and try to target the festivals that you like the best. You may want BAFTA qualifying festivals first, or you may want to go to other lesser known, you know, smaller festivals. But you would make an Excel spreadsheet with when is that festival, when's the deadline, what do we need from it, get your all the information together. I think it's done through all sorts of different real ports and things now, but really figure out what your budget is, and don't just think that you need to just apply to one festival, just to keep going. So how to promote yourself beyond that. I do think that audiences love, I don't do it, but I do think audiences, because I can't put myself up online with videos, although I'm doing it now, obviously. They really do like to hear from filmmakers, and, you know, so I say blogs, but websites and videos online, how to make, you know, making of. And I think that some people are so much braver than I am about that sort of stuff. That is all promotional. That's really important to say, hey guys, this is what I did here, because it leads your audience to go and watch your film. Particularly if you put something up online, you build a website, or you create links that are to do with the topic, you know, to build interest. That's all very good.
Images, a very clear short synopsis, all of that kind of really sort of obvious, but apparently not obvious stuff.
Well, get social media, build a Facebook page for it, build a website for it. It's all quite easy, not easy. So that
people can find it. No, but I think it's the logistics are easy, but making it work is perhaps not so easy.
It's not one person's job. It's definitely a team's. Yeah,
I agree. We're drawing to a close, but I wanted to ask if you've got any your major advice for writer directors, your kind of key advice.
It would be something I didn't do.
Hey, excellent! Even better advice, and then you know it's true. Go on then. What didn't you do?
You mean you talk about something when you're starting out?
Yeah, I'm talking to a lot of filmmakers, future writers, directors that are listening here.
I don't know how to give advice to future directors.
No, future.
Oh, fine. My advice is to make documentaries.
Really? Why is that?
Because you can, well, to start by making documentaries as a way into narrative.
That's really interesting. I really didn't expect you to say that, and you didn't do that. So why?
I think that documentary obviously is a type of narrative. I think you can learn so many skills from making documentaries. I know that documentary filmmakers have moved from that into narrative, because I'm not saying it's easier to make documentaries, but maybe I am, because but you find it out as you go along. It's very people-centered in the sense that you can explore very emotional, intimate issues, and the content is out there. You know, you just need the camera and what you're going to find to say. You can do very personal stories. You don't need to always persuade somebody else with, you know, the first few documentaries you make. that you need to build a set or make a costume or get this actor or print a script out, or it's very much a single or a small team activity. And what happens, somebody's starting out, that you can make your own you can make your own content, your own opinion of what you want to say as a filmmaker, and create some really strong work. And you may be able to find a way to get into narrative work that way.
I think also that documentary is such an open term now, in that we're certainly not just talking obs docs or talking heads. You're talking about a really massive range of very kind of cross the line about fact, fiction, and all of that kind of thing. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's documentary. I think that I've found it challenging to think, what would I make if I made a documentary? But I know that I would make observational documentary.
Right. Yeah. And what about, so I'm going to remind everyone of the details of Short It Out. But what kind of things do you think people should think about, again, just to reiterate, in terms of, hopefully everybody who's been listening here is going to submit. I really hope you're going to. And I was going to say, there's a lot of 90-second films on Depict, the Depict website, which is what you won with As I Was Falling, the film that we watched first, and how beneficial that was, and that, some of these films will be selected and will be screened on, will be on the BBC iPlayer, which is a fantastic opportunity for exposure for filmmakers. Any last thoughts for people who are thinking of putting together an idea?
I think that if it's something very, I'm going to say the word authentic, if it is something that is a human experience, or whether it's the narrative, but has a way of telling that perspective, that really helps what that perspective is. So think about the very human side of it. I'm just saying you don't have to do a film about a human. It has to be about kind of a universal experience. Your film can be about your pet, but
Dog Years, another beautiful Depict film.
Okay, yeah, but if we audience can see that it's really engaging with a certain experience that everybody can understand, but even though it might be something not happened to them, so very few. Try to say that in a way that is that really helps us to connect with that feeling.
Yeah, well, that's a brilliant way of putting it. Absolutely brilliant way of putting it. I'm going to say thank you very, very much, which seems weirdly formal to say that to you, but thank you very, very much, Rachel. I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was incredibly brilliant, and also really honest and really open about the changes in your process, and such a chance to see so much different work, but yet with some of these, as you mentioned, consistent themes that are things that really, really interest you.
All right, well, thank you. So nice to see you too.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. Hopefully next time in person we could finish the drink that we started.
We can.
Just to remind everybody that Short It Out is an online campaign which has been set up by the BFI Network, the Encounters Film Festival and Watershed, with the event partners of BAFTA and Channel 4. So there's a lot of really good names in there. The deadline is the 4th of June. You can create a film that's up to 90 seconds long. You can basically, obviously, keeping within the restrictions of whatever the current restrictions are, because I know we think they're about to change. So it can absolutely be within your house or with your garden or on your walk. You can make them on mobile phones, webcams, or animate them, but you can't have anybody else's copyright material in there, which I think is probably reasonably obvious to most people why. And then just share them with the hashtag #ShortItOut. And they together they will handpick some of the films that they think are the strongest, the most interesting, not the ones that had the biggest budget at all, or the most most professional, but the ones that are the most interesting, the most effective and most powerful. And they will go onto the BFI Player archive, which is an extraordinary opportunity for people to see your work. And I would think Rachel would agree that the exposure you got from winning Depict was really wonderful, and this is a great opportunity for people.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, so do look at, I think there are lots of films you can watch, past winners, including Rachel's, on the Depict website. I think I'm right saying that. I'm sure I'm right saying that. And other than that, I just wanted to say thank you everybody for joining us. I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to chat to you, Rachel.
Yeah,
it really has.
Thank you.
and also just to talk about really short form filmmaking, which is so exciting and so freeing, and also especially if you're sitting there writing a longer piece, why not just make something
Yes, absolutely.
immediate.
Always, yeah, I'll always try and make shorts, I think, if I can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody that I can't see.